They say blood is thicker than water, but what if the very people who share your last name are the ones slowly breaking you? For years, I told myself I was just being dramatic. That the late-night calls, the loans, the forgotten milestones were all part of what families do. But deep down, I knew what they called love felt more like quiet betrayal. This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about silence, survival, and the moment I finally said enough. So if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever been the one holding everyone else up while no one noticed you were sinking, this is for you. Let me take you back to the day it all changed. The auditorium at Texas State University roared with applause. Every seat was filled, parents with flower bouquets, siblings waving handmade signs, and balloons bouncing overhead like restless spirits of celebration. It should have felt like my moment too. But there they were, 3 empty chairs in row F, right in front of the sign that read reserved for family of Marissa Quinn. My heart sank. Around me, students were swallowed in hugs, camera flashes, and teary congratulations. I just sat there, hands clenched on my lap, throat dry from holding in the ache. 6 years. 6 years of sacrifice, of balancing school and night shifts at the diner, of skipping birthdays, barbecues, even my own flu recovery, all to make it to this day. A soft vibration in the pocket of my gown made my stomach twist. I already knew. Mom, sorry honey. Uncle Dave's Super Bowl thing ran late. You know how he gets. We'll do something next weekend. Love you. The screen dimmed as I let the phone fall back into my lap. My fingers were frozen, not from the blasting AC, but from the chill of disappointment I pretended not to feel for too long. I had sold my last guitar to cover my final tuition payment. I'd eaten cereal for dinner more nights than I could count. And still, they couldn't bother to show up. The announcer called out, Marissa Lee Quinn. I stood up on legs that didn't feel like mine. The only dress shoes I owned, scuffed black flats from a Goodwill clearance rack, tapped sharply on the polished wood as I made my way toward the stage. Tap, tap, tap. Every step sounded lonelier than the last. The graduation robe hung heavy on my shoulders. Not just with fabric, but with the weight of 6 long years. Of hunger, fatigue, and silence. The Bachelor of Business Administration degree I received with a congratulatory nod from the dean once felt like a key to a better future. Now it just felt like a receipt for the years I spent hoping to be seen. My eyes drifted again to those 3 empty chairs. I clutched the diploma tighter as a familiar voice echoed in my mind. You're the one who wanted this college nonsense, Marissa. That was never our dream, so don't expect applause. They used to say that whenever the house got loud with relatives downstairs. Go study, Marissa. This was your choice. There was never room for pride in me, only pressure. Another buzz. This time, Dad. There'll be a next time, sweetheart. We'll all be there when you get your master's. I stared at the message. My knuckles turned white from gripping the phone. Next time? Just like 3 years ago when they missed my community college graduation, only to show up grinning in photos from Uncle Dave's lakeside barbecue that very same afternoon. That day, I cried quietly in my room. Today I didn't cry. I hardened. That same afternoon, while my name echoed in the auditorium, my mom was live streaming her homemade dip from my aunt's Super Bowl party. Her caption, "Nothing beats Mom's jalapeno ranch on game day." In the background, I spotted Dad, beer in hand, shouting at the TV in his worn-out number 23 jersey, mouth wide with laughter. It should have made me smile, but all it did was burn. I had spent years convincing myself not to be bitter. That they didn't mean harm. That maybe next time would be different. But today, standing on that stage, diploma pressed tight against my ribs, I couldn't lie to myself any longer. They didn't forget. They just didn't care enough to come. I wasn't their pride. I was their fallback. The one who figured it out so they wouldn't have to. The one who'd Venmo money when they came up short, or cover Evan's cell bill when he lost another client. All around me, the hall rang with cheers, families clapping and crying. But it was white noise to me, sharp, tinny echoes that only reminded me of the silence in my own row. I walked out without waiting for the rest of the ceremony, just needing to breathe. Outside, I found an empty bench under a sycamore tree by the fountain. My degree case sat stiff on my lap, its full leather binding absorbing the sweat from my palms. I once thought this degree would earn me a seat at their table, maybe a little pride, a toast in my name. But now it felt like proof of everything I did alone. A breeze cut through the warmth of the Texas sun, sending a chill up my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. I stared straight ahead, but my mind pulled me backward. 3 years ago, when I graduated from Hill Country Community College, they swore they'd come. I waited outside the gymnasium in heels that pinched my feet, phone in hand. Their excuse? The radiator gave out and Dad didn't want to risk the drive. That night, I scrolled through social media while eating takeout alone. Uncle Dave had posted a picture, my entire family smiling beside a grill at the lake. Mom wore her barbecue queen apron. Dad held up a cooler with pride. And Evan? He had a Dodgers cap on backward, shouting into the camera about how family time heals everything. Just not mine, apparently. I knew my place early on. I was the safe one. The one they never had to worry about. I paid my own way, ate microwaved noodles, took temp jobs just to make rent, and when Evan needed a co-signer for a car to build his real estate brand, they all turned to me. I was 20, still learning how credit even worked. That car got towed 6 months later. The debt? Still on my name. Their answer? Marissa, families help each other. It's what we do. I did help. Every time. And somehow they always forgot that part. Back on campus, while classmates went out for celebratory dinners with their families, I found myself in the basement of the university library again, where vending machine sandwiches and leftover coffee had become my normal. It wasn't that I lacked pride. It was that I clung to hope. Hope that if I just kept going, just kept saying, yes, they'd finally see me. That maybe one day they'd show up, not to borrow, but to cheer me on. But reality had a cruel way of cutting through illusions. To them, I was never the one worth celebrating. I was the patch kit, the financial plan B, the invisible net that caught everyone when they fell without them ever wondering if I could stand on my own. I was their fallback. Their silent solution. My phone buzzed again. I didn't have to guess who it was. Sure enough, it was Evan. Hey Riss, any chance you could spot me $2,000? Uncle Dave selling his rodeo season tickets at a steal. One-time deal. Family fun, right? I let the phone slip from my hand onto the bench beside me. My fists clenched, nails pressing crescent moons into my palms. Family fun. How many times had their fun been paid for by my skipped meals? By my late fees? By the dreams I put on hold? It wasn't just Evan. There was the time he used my credit to secure a lease on a starter home he swore was a business investment. It became a party house within 2 months. He moved out when the water got cut off after weeks of unpaid bills. Bills under my name. And the midnight calls from Mom? Those were their own tradition. Always soft at first. Always careful. Sweetheart, your dad's got a little hiccup with the loan paperwork. We just need you to sign just to make things easier. You know how this works, baby. We're family. Family doesn't keep score. But score was all they ever kept. Every time I clawed toward progress, they found a way to drag me backward. Until now. Holding my degree, my real earned proof of worth, I made a decision. No more pleading calls. No more guilt trips wrapped in sweetie and just this once. No more being the reliable one they used and forgot. The sun glinted off the metal railing ahead, leading toward the parking lot. I stood. Smoothed my gown. The diploma felt heavy but no longer as a burden. It was my line in the sand. I walked away from the auditorium without once glancing over my shoulder. Back at my cramped apartment in San Marcos, my phone exploded with missed calls. Predictable. And just as I dropped my keys on the counter, it lit up again. Mom. Marissa, honey, I hope today was amazing. So proud of you. By the way, the house roof's leaking. Could you help out? Just $2,500. We'll make it up to you when your dad's check comes in. I stared at the message. And I laughed. But not the kind of laugh that feels good. I just need you to help me with $2,500. Mom's message read. We'll pay you back as soon as your dad's summer bonus clears. I stared at it blankly, lips curling into a bitter smile. Summer bonus? That was the same mythical windfall they promised last fall. Right before Evan posted his brand new 70-inch curved TV on Instagram. The same one I apparently paid for when my emergency savings mysteriously disappeared. The phone buzzed again. Evan. Maris, you're my favorite sister, come on. Lost my wallet this morning stuck on gas. $500? Just enough to get home. I'll owe you a pizza night. I sank into the old thrifted armchair in the corner of my apartment, threadbare and creaky like everything else in that space. The walls were thin, the fan wobbled when it spun, and the water pressure was hit or miss, but it was mine. Still, sitting there in that dim room, diploma still in its cardboard folder on the table, all I felt was cold. 6 years. I had given everything, time, energy, health, for a degree I believed would earn me respect. But to them I was still the safety net. The ATM with a heartbeat. The yes girl who never pushed back. Then came another call. Dad. Sweetheart, just a small favor. Need a cosigner for a quick end-of-year purchase. Got a great deal lined up, no risk. Just some paperwork, really. It was like listening to a script they'd rehearsed for years. They all said the same things with just enough guilt to make me pause. But I wasn't pausing anymore. Out of frustration, I opened Instagram. And there he was, Evan, just 2 hours ago, grinning ear to ear, front row at a Texans VIP game. His caption: work hard, play harder. Treat yourself sometimes. VIP tickets. I Googled the price. Starting at $1,200. This from the same brother who had once called me crying about the lights being shut off at home and begged for $3,000, swearing it was the last time. Just below his post, my mom had commented, "Live it up, my boy. Don't worry, mom's got your back." My fingers went numb. My face burned. These were the same people who had just begged me for rent, repairs, and family emergencies. But when Evan flaunted luxury, they cheered him on like he was royalty. I launched my banking app and my stomach turned. A $1,500 withdrawal gone. From a sub-savings account I'd made for emergencies. One I stupidly gave mom access to last year. Worse, when I opened my credit report, a red flag glared back. 3 new credit cards. All in my name. Marissa Quinn. Chase. American Express. A retail card from McKenna's Furniture. Each listed my parents' old address in Round Rock. Not mine. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the charges. $330 at Electronics Warehouse. $1,800 at a luxury furniture outlet. $475 at a liquor store. All within the last month. This wasn't help. This wasn't family support. This was theft, clear, calculated, and cruel. And this time I couldn't protect them anymore. I opened the last message from Mom. "Marissa, you know I hate to ask, but family leans on each other. Don't hold on to this little bump. We've always depended on you, don't forget that." I closed my eyes as a tight ache pressed behind them. Family. That word used to mean something soft, something safe. Now it was a beautifully packaged weapon, designed to keep me tethered while draining everything I had. There had been no real congratulations. No proud hug. No call to say, "We saw you on that stage." Just more excuses. More reasons to take. And now, yet another plea disguised as tradition. I looked down at the phone in my hand, holding it like it might bite. My chest swelled with something that felt like both fury and finality. I whispered aloud, calm, steady, certain. This time, I won't be the one giving in. I scrolled through my contacts until I reached a name I had stared at for months but never called. Tara Reynolds, financial abuse attorney in Austin. I hit dial. Before the third ring, her voice answered, even, assured, and without judgment. "Miss Quinn. I take it. You're ready now." I didn't hesitate. "Yes. I'm ready." The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds of my tiny apartment like a silent invitation. I sat on the edge of my mattress, laptop on my lap. The old ceiling fan spun overhead. I opened my travel app and booked a one-way ticket to Taos, New Mexico. Quiet, red-soiled, and far enough away to hear myself think. Not flashy like the cities my classmates had run to, but for me a sacred breath. I used to dream of Taos in passing, telling myself I'd go there once I'd earned rest. But now I knew the truth. Rest isn't a luxury for survivors. It's a boundary. A right. The booking confirmation loaded in seconds. But the feeling of peace? That would last longer. My phone buzzed again. Megan, my old coworker at the cafe. One of the few who had seen behind my practiced smile. "Marissa, I can't believe you finally did it. I'm so proud. And you know, you always have a place here if you need it." I smiled genuinely. I hadn't been missing family. I'd just been looking in the wrong places. That same afternoon, Tara called back. "I reviewed your credit report. This is no longer a case of family assistance. It's identity theft. And if you're ready to proceed, we begin tomorrow." It hit me. What had kept me silent all this time wasn't fear of them. It was fear of being the villain in their story. But no more. No one has the right to drain someone's life in the name of love. My flight was scheduled for Saturday morning. I packed lightly, just the essentials. A few worn outfits, my laptop, and that stiff degree I earned alone. As I zipped up my suitcase, the screen lit up again. "Mom, Video call. I hit decline. A voicemail followed. Marissa, don't overreact. You've always been the kind one. Don't turn your back on us now. But I had learned something. Kindness doesn't mean obedience. And love doesn't mean self-sacrifice. Each step I took down the stairs felt lighter, like I was finally shedding the years I'd spent carrying everyone else's weight. The plane touched down in Taos just past noon. The sun beat down over the high desert, but the air felt clean, almost weightless. For the first time in years, I wasn't choking on tension or bracing for the next guilt-laced call. Here no one knew my name. And that was the point. I'd rented a small adobe casita tucked near the edge of the mesa, shaded by juniper trees. The owner, Ms. Dolores, a warm woman in her late 60s with a faded denim apron and eyes like soft stone, greeted me with quiet understanding. Honey, she said, handing me the key. Taos might not erase the pain, but it'll show you how to stop giving your joy away. Simple words. But they hit me like a wave, so unexpected and kind that my throat tightened. Later that day, I sat on the porch with a chipped mug of chamomile tea. My phone lay on the table, screen glowing. Tara had sent everything: legal strategies, credit disputes, asset locks, and most importantly, a court-approved restraining order to keep my family from contacting me again. Beside it was a curated list of financial recovery specialists for survivors of familial fraud. As I scrolled through each name, a quiet realization settled over me. I wasn't broken. I had simply never been taught how to protect what was mine. My phone buzzed again. Megan. Riss, you are the bravest person I know. Just remember, being strong doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. I've got you. The sun dipped low behind the mountains, bathing the earth in crimson and amber. I lifted my phone and snapped a picture of the horizon. Then, for the first time in my life, I posted without fear, no dread of judgment, no hesitation. Caption: starting over with myself. That evening, a new email arrived. Rebecca Lane, a financial counselor Tara had recommended. Marissa, I've reviewed your documents. You're not alone. What you've endured is more common than you think. We'll walk through this together step by step. No panic. Just power. 3 days after arriving in Taos, I found myself seated across from Tara at her office downtown. My hand rested on a thick binder filled with evidence. Forged loans, unauthorized cards, years of deception. Her voice was steady. No pity. Just purpose. Marissa, we'll begin by freezing everything in your name. I've prepped the agency reports. And from now on, they don't get to touch any part of your life. Unless you let them. I nodded slowly. For the first time, I believed her. And more importantly, I believed me. For the first time in years, that familiar fear, the one that used to sit like a boulder on my chest, was gone. In its place was something new: clarity. Not loud or triumphant, but quiet and solid. Like the sound of a door locking behind you when you finally walked away. That morning, with Tara by my side, we filed the lawsuit at the New Mexico District Court. The charges: family financial abuse, credit fraud, and personal asset misappropriation. Alongside them, we submitted a cease and desist order, prohibiting any contact from my parents or Evan without my written consent. That same afternoon, I sent them one last message. I've given you more chances than you ever deserved. From this day forward, any contact without my permission will be addressed through legal means. Respect is the only way you will ever be considered family again. I hit send and exhaled slowly, fully, as if closing a chapter I'd been stuck in for most of my life. The guilt I expected to feel never came. Just relief. Cold and clean. A week later, Rebecca Lane, the financial counselor Tara had connected me with, encouraged me to share my story anonymously on a small financial wellness forum. I hesitated. Then I typed about the years of working double shifts, skipping meals, covering bills that weren't mine, and the moment I finally said enough. I didn't expect the response. Within 48 hours, the post had thousands of views. Comments poured in. This is my story too. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. Live your life, Marissa. You're not alone. Every word felt like a blade gently cutting through the web of shame I'd carried far too long. 2 days later, my inbox lit up with an unfamiliar name. Celeste Morgan, HR Director at High Ridge Consulting, a financial advisory firm based in Denver. Hello, Marissa. I read your story and was deeply moved. At High Ridge, we value life-earned wisdom. We're launching a new program supporting young women affected by financial abuse. You are exactly who we're looking for. Would you consider interviewing for the program manager role? All expenses covered. I read the email 3 times. Highridge, an organization I had followed quietly through college, admiring their work for how they mixed heart with numbers. The interview took place over Zoom, and for the first time I didn't perform. I told the truth about survival, debt, shame, and rebuilding, about why I wanted to help women like me. Celeste smiled. You're not just qualified, Marissa. You're essential. 1 week later, I received the official offer. $95,000 starting salary, full benefits, 6 months of housing assistance, and a workplace that saw my story not as baggage but as value. That evening, offer letter in hand, I sat on the front steps of the little casita in Taos, watching the desert shadows stretch across the land beneath a rising moon. Megan had flown in to celebrate with me, her suitcase still sitting in the gravel driveway. She handed me a soda and nudged my shoulder. You know what, Riss? I've never seen you smile with your eyes before. Not like this. I didn't answer. I just looked up at the sky wide and open like my future finally felt. That feeling, freedom, real and solid, was something I didn't even know I'd been starving for. When I moved to Denver a few weeks later, it was with 1 suitcase and a belief bigger than anything I'd ever packed before. I was no longer anyone's backup plan. No one's emotional crutch. No one's bank account. Walking into Highridge Consulting for the first time, I didn't find judgment. No one scanned me to see what version of myself I'd bring. They just saw me, Marissa Quinn, the woman who'd survived and decided that survival wasn't the end of the story. 3 months later, I stood backstage at the Unity Business Summit, held in a towering event space downtown. The room beyond the curtain was filled. Hundreds of business leaders, nonprofit founders, and policy changers gathered for a panel on financial independence and recovery. And I was the keynote speaker. The mic was clipped to my lapel. The lights above the stage glowed hot, but I stood steady. Miss Quinn, Celeste said gently, placing a warm hand on my shoulder. Ready? I smiled, breath calm. Never been more. But just before I stepped forward, a commotion stirred from the lobby. A staffer burst into the wings, pale and frantic. Marissa, 3 people just forced their way in. They say they're your family. They're yelling, demanding to see you. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. Mom, Dad, Evan. They had found me. No way to stall it. I walked onto the stage as the MC introduced me. The spotlight hit, but even through the glare, I could make out the silhouettes pushing through the crowd, bypassing security. Dad's voice thundered from the back. Everyone here's being lied to. This is my daughter, and she's making up stories to destroy her own family. Gasps rippled through the audience. Mom followed, mascara streaking dramatically. We gave up everything for her. And now she turns on us with lies. Evan held his phone high, recording with a smirk. The world deserves to know the truth. She's nothing but a fake. The tension was electric. But this time I didn't tremble. I raised my head and said clearly, if you want the truth. I turned toward the screen behind me. Let's lay it all out right here, right now. I turned toward the massive presentation screen behind me. With a single tap on the remote, the truth filled the room. First came the bank statements, showing unauthorized withdrawals from accounts in my name. Then credit card statements issued under Marissa Lee Quinn, opened fraudulently using my social security number, all linked to my parents' old address. Next, screenshots of texts from Evan appeared. Begging, pleading, guilt-tripping. I swear I'll pay you back. It's just for rent. Can you co-sign? It's just a formality. You're the only one in this family who has their act together. And then the twist of the knife, photos of Evan grinning in VIP lounges, champagne in hand, hashtags like #VegasBaby and #winning. Then came the audio clip. My mother's voice, clear and unmistakable. Marissa, come on. You have money. Of course you should help the family. The room went still. You could hear every breath, including theirs, from the back of the auditorium, raw, unfiltered and exposed. I looked at them, my so-called family, and stayed quiet for a moment, letting the evidence speak first. I'd spent so many years thinking silence was noble, that staying quiet was how you protected your family. But now I understood. Silence only protects the ones doing the harm. So I raised my voice. Calm. Steady. I'm not here to seek revenge. I'm here to stop the cycle. Started slowly, just a few claps. Then more. The entire room erupted into a standing ovation. Security stepped forward, no longer hesitant. Mr. and Mrs. Quinn. Mr. Evan Quinn. You are trespassing. You must leave immediately. But the situation had escalated beyond event protocol. 2 officers appeared at the edge of the stage. The lead officer's voice was cold, professional. Robert Quinn, Evan Quinn. You are under arrest for multiple counts of identity theft and financial fraud. Patricia Quinn. You are under investigation for complicity in financial exploitation. The room held its breath as the cuffs clicked into place. The sharp metallic snap echoed louder than any gavel I'd ever heard. Then came the applause again. Not out of cruelty, but relief and recognition. That day, my keynote turned into something more, a reckoning. I spoke honestly about how financial abuse hides behind smiles, guilt, and obligation. How the bravest thing we can do is say no and mean it. After the event, my inbox lit up with a message from Elaine Foster, editor at Highland Press. Marissa, your story needs to be told. If you're ready, we'd love to help you publish it. 3 months later, I stood at a different podium. No longer defending myself, this time I was launching a mission. The Beacon Grant had officially begun. Just like I once did, I said, standing at the podium, my voice steady. We don't just provide grants, we provide a space to be heard, to be defended, and to build freedom from the ground up. The audience applauded as the Beacon Grant ceremony came to a close. Handshakes, congratulations, and quiet promises of future collaboration buzzed around me. But it wasn't the accolades that stayed with me. It was the young woman who approached as the lights dimmed. She clutched her tote bag like a shield. I'm Kaylee, she said quietly. Your story made me realize I'm not alone. My parents, they opened cards in my name too. I thought if I ignored it, it'd go away. But today, I think I'll finally fight back. I reached out and took her hand. For a second, it was like looking into a mirror of who I had been 5 years ago. Frightened, exhausted, but finally ready. Founding Beacon was never just about me. The conference, the lawsuit, it all sparked something bigger. More and more people started telling their stories, no longer whispering behind closed doors. Speaking requests came pouring in. But I quickly learned to be discerning. Some platforms only wanted to sensationalize the trauma. I turned those down. I only said yes where I could create impact, not spectacle. And then one morning I saw it, an email in bold. TEDx Denver, Marissa Quinn, we invite you to share your story of financial and personal liberation from familial abuse. For a long time, I stared at the screen. 3 years ago, I would have shut my laptop and gone back to hiding. But now, I opened my calendar and typed yes. On the day of the talk, I wore a navy blue suit, not flashy but firm. It wasn't about looking successful. It was about standing in the skin of who I had become. I stepped onto the red circle, took a breath, and began. I'm Marissa Quinn. I used to think sacrifice held a family together. But eventually I learned unconditional sacrifice can become self-destruction. The auditorium was hushed. People leaned in. I spoke of forgery, of manipulation, of standing up to it all. Of saying no not just once but for the last time. And when I finished, the applause wasn't just noise. It was power. It was permission for every person watching to choose their own freedom. The Beacon Grant expanded faster than I imagined. In 6 months, we helped over 20 survivors erase stolen debt, seek justice, and access no-cost counseling. But my favorite moment? That first Beacon dinner. No stage. No headlines. Just a cozy room, mismatched chairs, and laughter from people finally allowed to breathe. Megan made lasagna from scratch. Celeste brought wine. Rebecca told terrible jokes that had everyone howling. And me? I looked around and realized. This was family. The kind I chose. For the first time, I felt it deep in my bones I belonged. Not because of shared blood, but because I was seen, heard, and valued. That was family. The kind that doesn't guilt you into silence. The kind you choose. That night, Kaylee, the quiet girl who'd once approached me with shaking hands, stood up during our Beacon dinner to share her milestone. I've officially frozen my credit, she said with a proud smile. And I start my first internship on Monday. The applause that followed wasn't polite or performative, it was genuine. It was the sound of people who knew how much it took to reclaim your own name. A few mornings later, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of my new office in Denver's Union District, casting long golden beams over the wood floor. On the wall across from my desk, 2 framed photographs hung side by side. The first, me at 20 in a wrinkled black gown, gripping my bachelor's degree with trembling hands. Behind me, 3 empty chairs, the ones reserved for my parents and Evan, who never showed up. That day, the Super Bowl mattered more than my 6-year climb to that diploma. The second, taken just a few months ago, this time at my MBA graduation. I was in a navy gown, my cap tilted slightly from the spring breeze. And behind me? Not a single empty seat. Megan, waving a tiny flag that said "Go Riss." Rebecca, holding up a glittery sign that read "You did it," and Celeste, standing in the middle with a bouquet so large it looked like it belonged on a parade float. That was my family now. The people who had never asked me to shrink or pay or hide to be loved. I stepped closer to the frames and gently touched the glass. That first photo used to make me wince. Now it just reminded me of how far I'd come. Just then my computer pinged. "Hi Marissa, my name is Naomi and I just received the Beacon grant. I'm a senior in Kansas. I'm scared but hopeful. Could I ask for advice on how to start?" My heart clenched in the best way. That question had once been mine, sent into the dark with no one to answer it. Now I was the answer for someone else. That weekend, the workshop I hosted, Financial Empowerment After Family Exploitation, was overbooked within 72 hours. It wasn't a grand affair. No flashy presentations or glossy swag bags. Just a circle of chairs, warm light, and truth. A young woman named Emily, sharp eyes despite her exhaustion, stood and spoke. "I thought saying no to my mom made me a bad daughter. But after hearing your story, I realized protecting myself is a kind of love too." The applause was quiet but strong, more solidarity than sound. Afterward, while cleaning up the last of the coffee cups, Rebecca touched my shoulder. "That girl from the empty chairs? She's come a long way." I smiled. "She's still here. She's just not bowing anymore." That evening, back in my small apartment in River North, the sky turned blush pink behind the skyline. On my desk lay the reprint contract for Stepping Out of the Family Shadow, now entering its 3rd edition. And beside it, a manuscript in progress titled "When Love Crosses the Line." I no longer felt that sharp bitterness when I thought about Mom, Dad, or Evan. The legal battles were over. The silence from them was no longer an ache, it was a boundary. And the same online spaces where they once tried to discredit me had become the very places where their actions were exposed and justice stepped in. As for me, I didn't look back. I moved forward intentionally. That evening, during a quiet dinner at Celeste's, surrounded by the people who had become my chosen family, she raised her glass with a smile. To those brave enough to choose themselves again. I lifted mine too, clinking it gently. My eyes were calm, not because I had erased the pain, but because I had transformed it into power. Later that night, I stood on the balcony of my small apartment, the Denver skyline shimmering beneath the stars. And in that stillness, I understood something. Sometimes the price of finding your true family is letting go of the one that never truly saw you. Not family by blood, but family by respect, by choice, by mutual care. A soft chime from my phone pulled me from the moment. A calendar alert. Guest lecture, University of Colorado. Rebuilding After Family Financial Betrayal. I closed my eyes and inhaled the crisp, pine-tinted air. My journey wasn't over. Each lecture, every client I mentored, every workshop I hosted, it was all for the girl I used to be. The one sitting alone between 3 empty chairs, wondering if she mattered. She did. She does. I opened my journal and scribbled a quiet truth. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from those who never really stood beside you. Below me, the city lights blinked like tiny stars, and for the first time in my life, I felt it. Not fear, not resentment. Freedom. Marissa's story is a reminder that not all families are built on love, but the ones we build ourselves can be even stronger. Have you ever had to choose yourself over toxic ties? Share your story below. And don't forget to follow this channel for more powerful journeys of healing, strength, and new beginnings.